And showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the ChannelPro 5-Minute Roundup. A look at news, trends, and tips for the SMB channel in 5 minutes or thereabouts. My name is Rich Freeman. I am executive editor of the ChannelPro Network, also a host of this program. I am joined this week, as I am delighted to be every week, by your other co-host, Eric Simpson, a business transformation and improvement advisor to MSPs and other IT providers. Eric, how goes it?
Well, Rich, that's a very gracious intro. I'm as delighted, if not more delighted, to share the stage with you each and every week. So thank you. No, it's great, Rich. It's October. The temperature is dropping a little bit. It's getting a little cooler. Getting excited for the next series of little holidays that we have coming up. We've got Halloween. That's exciting. We'll see how we deal with that. Last year, I remember the trick-or-treaters were few and far between at our house, but understandably so, right, because of COVID. So let's see if there's any.
As I'm a Seattle guy, help me out here. What qualifies as cooler in October in Southern California?
Oh, so 74, 72 is kind of like what we expect it to be today.
Yeah,
that's the high.
Yeah. So when I'm for folks who are watching on video, I'm obviously in a hotel room right now. But when I'm back home in Seattle, we're not going to see 74 again until maybe June of next year. So yeah, cooler. Okay.
Cooler.
Well, let's dive into our
top
story. Sorry about that. Let's dive into our top story this week, which is actually two top stories. And it's kind of a sign of the times thing here I'm going to try out on you, Eric, because there were two things that figured prominently in this week's news, and I thought the contrast between them was kind of interesting. So first of all, obviously on October 5th, Microsoft released Windows 11. And once upon a time, we're both old enough to remember this, Eric, the introduction of a major Windows release was major news in the IT industry, and everybody was all over it. There was a big launch event of some kind somewhere. It was a very big deal for everybody. I'm not going to say nobody was paying attention this week, but it's not as if it made a huge splash, even in the IT media. Also this week, VMware held its annual conference, VMworld, and they had a whole bunch of different things that they announced, but a lot of their announcements had to do with cloud computing. And in particular, they announced some new managed Kubernetes services that would allow you to modernize apps on the VMware cloud, some new capabilities designed to make it simpler and safer, more secure to run applications in VMware cloud. So a number of different things. We won't even go into the details, but basically the core theme of what VMware was talking about to VMworld attendees this week was how they're helping organizations take on-premises systems and applications into the cloud and run them in the cloud. And pretty clearly, that's where things are going right now. So, I mean, the reason Windows 11 didn't get the kind of attention a Windows release used to get, basically, is because endpoint operating systems simply don't matter the way they used to in the era of cloud computing, which we are barreling towards at an even faster rate since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. And I'll just say the reason I'm in a hotel room right now is I just attended ChannelPro's latest event in Raleigh, North Carolina. And yesterday when we did that, I got my first up close and personal glimpse of Windows 365. So, I mean, Microsoft very much knows it's all about the cloud in the future. The endpoint operating system is far from dead. It's not irrelevant, but that's not where it's at anymore in this industry. The endpoint that you're running your cloud application on doesn't matter all that much as long as you've got a good cloud connection. And this Windows 365 instance I was looking at was on an iPad. This guy was showing it to me on his Apple iPad, which just sort of reinforces Windows 11. I will, I'm sure, install it soon on the laptop I'm using to record this podcast right now. It doesn't matter the way it used to. The kinds of things that VMware is doing and announcing right now matters more and more for businesses of every size.
Yeah, Rich, you remind me of what big events these used to be, right? The next version of Windows. I remember, quick story, blast from the past, when Windows 95 came out. I remember the hype. I remember the fanfare. I remember the different events in different cities. And I remember waiting in line until midnight for the local, computer retail store to open up, right? Midnight on the night that it's going to be released. And there was a crowd of people out there along with me trying to get our hands on a box of Windows 95, with the CD-ROM installation disk. Those days are long gone. Cloud just isn't sexy, right? Cloud just isn't sexy anymore. And, this big buildup, this big hype. And in fact, even the way that the operating system is being delivered by Microsoft, it's a free upgrade to anyone that qualifies with, a qualifying version of Windows 10 and maybe some other caveats. So it's kind of, hey, here it is. And I remember, Rich, when they announced Windows 10, they said this is going to be the last operating system, if you'll remember, that Microsoft releases. It'll just be updates to it over time. Well, I guess somebody had a different thought. Now it's Windows 11. So you're right. VMware is probably playing that long game, right? They've been at this for a while now, and they see, that vision that they're looking at is, moving past these endpoints, moving past devices, and now it's going to be, operating system from anywhere. It's, and we talked about this maybe a year ago. I don't remember, maybe less on this program when I kind of mentioned that Windows and all of the Microsoft software suites, they're just going to be apps that can be run on anything. And I think that's where we're going.
Absolutely. I completely agree. You know what? Let's move on to your tip of the week, Eric. And I think you're going to hold the listener or viewer's hands now and encourage them to do something they might be hesitant to do.
Yes. Follow me, everyone. Follow me as I make it okay for you to get your price increase letters ready for 2022. Yes, we are going to raise our prices in 2022 because our costs of doing business have gone up. And, I have a lot of partners, Rich, that, may not have raised their prices for many years and tend to want to hesitate now because, oh, COVID, really? I don't know if it, how my clients are going to take it. It's okay to raise your prices a few percent to try to true up or try to get to close to, where you were in the past when you may have sold those legacy agreements that are 3 or 5 years old that just auto renew. How do you ever raise your prices if your agreements auto renew? Well, one tip I'll give you is to insert a clause in your agreement that says your agreements will be reviewed on an annual basis to determine whether or not a price increase is justified. And if so, that price increase shall not exceed X percent. Now, be bold, insert 7 to 10% in there, if you will. Depending upon the size of the agreement, if it's a $20,000 a month agreement, then you might have to shave it down a little bit. But in general, make sure you have that clause in your agreement so that you can review it. And this isn't to make up for things you're not charging for, okay? Oh, they added 4 users, we didn't bill them, and they added, this equipment that we're monitoring and we're not charging them for it. That's not what this is. You should be truing up those things on a regular basis to maintain your margins, but just simply to keep pace with your cost of service delivery. Your vendors' services and solutions to you may have gone up. Your licensing fees may have gone up. Your commissions on things you were selling in the past may have dropped. So it's okay. Let the price increase letter go out and be bold about it and say, hey, as of January 1st, you will see an increase in your invoice of insert a percentage. And you may customize it for different clients, but in general, make the majority at least a minimum of 5%. And inform them that you've done a great job of trying to keep costs down, but unfortunately, you are forced to have the good news is it is a modest increase of only 5% or 10%, whatever you feel, and ask forgiveness later. In my experience working with hundreds of MSPs, you'll get a very, very small, insignificant number of folks that will complain. And for those that do complain, just negotiate a little bit less for them, but don't let them slide. That's the tip of the week, Rich. Let's see what 2022 brings for everybody.
And, we should say part of the reason why you're bringing this up now is here we are at the beginning of October. Now is the time to let folks know the prices are going to go up in January. And I would just call out a particular subset of the MSP world here that might particularly want to go ahead and raise prices next year. And, we know in the current threat landscape that there are a lot of companies out there adopting new security solutions, adding new layers to their stack. And then there's always that issue that people wrestle with. Well, do I pass that added cost that I'm shouldering onto the customer, or do I take that out of margin? If your expenses have gone up, and this is just one small example of why raising your prices next year is probably going to be a good idea for most of the people in the audience. But if your expenses have gone up because it costs you more to protect your customers, now is the time to make sure that you restore your margins.
And you raise a really good point, Rich, and I'd like to tag in and clarify this. A price increase is not trying to true up and raise your prices because you're delivering another bundle or suite of services. A price increase is a price increase for the existing agreement that's in place now. I also do encourage you, of course, to roll in your cybersecurity bundles and price those accordingly and sell those to your clients. Had a conversation with a partner a couple of weeks ago, helping them trying to get this together, and had to clarify the price increase letter. We're not trying to true up their lower margin services that they're currently delivering by just adding more solutions and trying to make up for it that way, because that way you're eroding the margins of both services. What I'm saying is increase the price of the existing agreement that's in place, and then introduce a new suite of services to strengthen your client's cybersecurity posture and charge them accordingly. Got it.
Good advice. Thank you. It leaves us with time for just one more story this week. Some folks appreciate squirrels more than others, but they're cute little furry guys. And here's a story that comes from Fargo, North Dakota, where a gentleman named Bill Fisher, spotted a red squirrel kind of hanging out around his pickup truck, as the cold weather was approaching, basically. Cute little fella, until he discovered that the reason he kept seeing the squirrel was because the squirrel was using his pickup truck as a storage place for the nuts that he was saving up for the winter. And in fact, by the time that Mr. Fisher realized what was going on, there were 42 gallons of walnuts in the bed of his pickup truck there. And I can only imagine what was required to get that out of there. And I don't know, maybe he held on to the walnuts and used them in a baking project of some kind or another. A little gift from Mother Nature, Eric.
An industrious squirrel that we could all learn a lesson from. Prepare for hard times ahead.
It's a good point. Kudos to the squirrel. That was a lot of 42 gallons of walnuts. That was work.
Yeah, it was.
All right, folks, that is all the time we've got for you this week. We're going to be back again next week with another episode for you. If you are watching us on video, we are also a podcast, an audio podcast that you will find on Google and Apple and Stitcher and all the great places podcasts are distributed. If you are listening to the podcast and would like to check us out on video, go to YouTube, look for the ChannelPro Network channel there. In fact, if you take an extra second and click the little bell icon, you'll get notified when new episodes become available. To read up on stuff like Windows 11 being introduced and news from VMware and all sorts of other information you can use to grow your business, please visit channelpronetwork.com every day, because you will find great new content for you there every day. To learn more about Eric and the work he does with his clients, please visit ericsimpson.com. That is ERICK Simpson.com. Once again, we thank you for joining us. We're going to be back again next week. Until then, folks, please enjoy the rest of your week. Eric and I are enjoying the rest of your week already.